on everyone, it's the Print House, and today I finally have the review of the LuckyBot chocolate extruder, food extruder, paste extruder, whatever you want to call it. Guys, this is an incredible product, and I am going to give you a full in-depth review of this extruder right now. Alright guys, let's first start where I started with the LuckyBot, and that is the installation process. So the installation of LuckyBot, first off, a little bit tricky, you know, there's not fantastic instructions. The instructions in the package, basically non-existent. They do not tell you how to install the LuckyBot. The LuckyBot website, however, does have some pretty good instructions on how to install, operate, and whatever else, do anything with the LuckyBot. But what comes in the box, not that great. That being said, you guys are lucky because in the description below, I will have a full installation video. Anyway, moving on from that, guys, the installation, once you know what you're doing, it actually is really easy. On my unit, my 3D printer, I don't think the LuckyBot is a permanent addition. I have no reason for it to be a permanent addition, but I do want to be able to install it for holidays or for special occasions. And that being said, guys, I think once you understand the LuckyBot and the installation process, once you've done it once or twice, I really believe this can be taken off or put on full, start to finish, in about 15 minutes. It's not that difficult. There's only 2 screws holding the LuckyBot to the faceplate, and there's only 2 or 3 screws holding the faceplate to the actual 3D printer. So there's very few screws. It's just on, off very quickly. I think it's very easily and doable. Now, once the LuckyBot is installed on the printer, guys, it was turnkey. It just worked. I went to the LuckyBot website. I downloaded their STL files that were already there. I figured those would be the ones that I wanted to start with. Those are the ones that were tested from factory. So that's where I started. Guys, it was turnkey. I really loaded the STL file into Cura, special Cura version, but I loaded into Cura, hit the slice button, hit the save the SD card button, put the SD card in the printer, and when it started printing, it just worked. So one fantastic thing about the LuckyBot, specifically when printing chocolate is a very sticky material when it's liquid. It just sticks to the bed. There is absolutely no difficulties with that. You know, when you're printing plastic and you extrude it and then it just peels right up before, you know, only an inch away from the nozzle because it just can't stick to the bed, you don't have that issue with chocolate. So Z offset, incredibly easy to dial in. Getting the printer going, I mean, it was just fantastically easy. There's only 3 buttons on the LuckyBot. You have a power button, and that power button is a dual purpose button, so when you push it and hold it, it turns the machine on and off. And when you push it once, it changes the settings from the wall temperature to the nozzle temperature. So you've got 2 different temperatures you can set. You can set the wall temperature. Now the wall temperature is a temperature that actually goes around the entire tube of chocolate, and that's the temperature in order for you to preheat the tube. This way you can have all of these tubes preloaded in your fridge, and then you can install a cold tube of chocolate into the LuckyBot. You preheat it, you load it up, you put the wall temperature at 36 degrees Celsius, you put your nozzle temperature at 36 degrees Celsius, and then you let it sit for 30 or 40 minutes, you come back, and then your chocolate is ready to go. So the other 2 buttons, the up arrow, it will change the temperature of whatever you're setting. So if you're changing the wall temperature, then it'll raise the wall temperature. If you're changing the nozzle temperature, it'll raise the nozzle temperature. Then when you go ahead and you push this button on the far left again, it swaps. So first, if you were changing the wall temperature and you push that button, now you're changing the nozzle temperature. And vice versa. If you're changing the nozzle temperature and you push that button, now you're changing the wall temperature. Now, the other thing is these buttons are also dual purpose, the up and down arrows. If you push and hold them for a long time, this lead screw actually is going to move the plunger. Now, the way these tubes of chocolate work, you fill the tube and you have a silicone lid, if you will, on the inside of the tube, and an extruder goes through and it actually pushes that silicone tube or the silicone lid down, and because this is a vacuum, there's nowhere for the air to go and nowhere for the air to escape, or for the chocolate to escape, except the bottom. The chocolate just escapes out the bottom. So that is how the LuckyBot works. Now, there is a little bit of a complicating factor in that if you have a full tube of chocolate and you don't know how much material you're going to need to print, well, you don't really know because there's no filament runout sensor. So you're going to have to constantly open this door as you're printing. Luckily, that does not pause the print. So you're going to have to open the door and constantly check. So that means that you're not going to be able to set this printer up and forget it. The other issue is this extruder does not have end stops. So if you are manually moving the extruder or the plunger up or down, you might bottom out, and it's just going to make this horrific sounding noise, and it's just not a noise that you'll want to deal with, and you might actually damage some components. That being said, guys, this is already not a machine that you want to set and forget. So I have been using this machine for about over 1.5 pounds of chocolate. That's a lot of chocolate. To put it into perspective, this chocolate bar is 4.4 ounces. So 4 of these is a pound, a little less than 4 of these is a pound. So I've probably printed somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 of these chocolate bars. That's a lot of chocolate. I haven't had any issues bottoming out the extruder or anything like that, guys. So probably not an issue, but just something to keep in mind. But anyway, so as you're printing, you're gonna have to open the door in order to see if you're gonna run out of material. Now, if you run out of material, you have 2 options. The first option is you can pause your printer, you can remove the empty tube, and then you can put a new tube in. Now, the problem with putting a new tube in is likely your new tube is going to be totally solid. So that's going to mean that you have to preheat the new tube. Now, that's not really an issue because there's no way around it, right? That's not LuckyBot's fault. There's only so much chocolate that can fit in, and chocolate is just inherently, it's going to be solid. You can, in fact, preheat your chocolate. You can be on the lookout and you can pay attention. When your tube is running low, you can go to your microwave or your stove or however you liquefy your chocolate. You can then get it preheated over there, which takes a lot less time. And whenever your tube is out, you can go and you can fill a new tube, and that means your new tube is already ready. So whenever your first tube runs out of chocolate, you can hit the pause button, remove the tube from the extruder. You can manually, on the LuckyBot, you can retract the plunger, and then you can install a new tube of chocolate. So that being said, guys, I don't know if you even want to do that, and in my experience printing chocolate, I think probably the best bet is for you to slice your models in small pieces. So slice only, 1 to 1.5 to 2 inches of a model and print that. And then refill your tube and then slice the next 1.5 inches. So basically slice the bottom, slice the middle, and slice the top. And then when all of your pieces are done and they're all printed in chocolate, go ahead and fuse them together. Chocolate, it melts so easily. You can just dip your material in some liquid chocolate and then stick them together and glue them together. I think that's probably the best way to go. But so moving on, another great thing about this product, guys, is the power adapters. And you are going to think I'm crazy. You're like, why are you going nuts over a power adapter? Guys, this power adapter, it is genius. So I opened up the power adapter in my installation video, and you guys are probably like, oh my gosh, that's weird too. Yeah, well, it is super weird. It's got one input and it splits off, and then you've got this brick that's like, what is all this? Well, basically what you do is you can run the LuckyBot separately and independently from the 3D printer. Now, this is not going to make any sense to you until you've actually used the LuckyBot, but being able to have the LuckyBot on and preheating a tube of chocolate without actually having the printer on is invaluable because the printer is incredibly loud. So the LuckyBot makes no noise whatsoever. So it's just fantastic that I can take the included power cable for the printer. You plug that into the wall and then you plug it into the single side over here. That splits. One of these splits goes into your printer. The other split goes into this power adapter right here. And then the other end of this power adapter gets plugged in directly to the LuckyBot. That means the LuckyBot is always supplied power even when the printer is turned off. So I can keep my printer off. I can then come grab a tube of chocolate, stick it in the LuckyBot, turn the LuckyBot on, set it to 36 degrees Celsius, walk away for 45 minutes, come back, and my tube of chocolate is ready to go. Now, figuring out when the chocolate actually is ready to go, again, a little bit of a complicating factor. The LuckyBot doesn't have a green light. It doesn't know when your chocolate is ready. It doesn't know what chocolate you're using. So in my case, I was using Calabo. Guys, highly recommend Calabo. Very expensive. Highly recommend it. I am not a chocolatier. I don't know the best kinds of chocolate, but that's what I was using and I highly recommend it. For me, the Calabo chocolate took about 45 minutes to become ready to print. Now, the only way I could really tell when the machine was actually truly ready to print was to use a nozzle needle. Now, those nozzle needles that you get with your printer, they're used to unclog your printer. That is the only way I could actually determine when the LuckyBot was ready. So I would stick the nozzle needle up into the tip of the LuckyBot, and I would just check if any of the chocolate was still hard. Now, if any of the chocolate was still hard, I would let it sit for another 5 or 10 minutes and I would come back and I would check it again. And once I stick the nozzle needle up the nozzle of the LuckyBot and there was no hard material, then what you can do is you can use the up and down arrows on the LuckyBot, push the down arrow and hold it. That's going to push the plunger down. It's going to push the plunger into the tube, and it's going to then push the silicone lid in the tube, and chocolate is going to be extruded out of the nozzle. From there, you can then go onto the printer. You can go to the move menu where you move the X, Y, and Z axis. You can also move the extruder. Now, when you move the extruder, move it in the positive direction, and it's just a test to see that you have a full stream of liquidy chocolate running out of the printer. And so that is the best way that I could tell that the LuckyBot was ready. So guys, once you've determined that the LuckyBot is ready to print, you guys are going to be very curious about, can you print supports? What can you print? Can you print custom models? There's going to be a lot of that. And guys, the answer is you are limited to what you can print. The LuckyBot excels in things that are short and flat with very little vertical detail. So things like this star, for example, the LuckyBot excels at stuff like this because it's just a pattern. All you're doing is the same thing, one layer after the next. There's not going to be any overhangs to deal with. There's not going to be any funny details. It's just one thing after the next. And as long as you can dial in your Z offset and you have the right chocolate, it's just going to work. There are other things that you can print that are a little more complicated. Things like this teddy bear. This teddy bear, it is completely and entirely hollow. You have some detail. You have some ears. You have a nose. You have a mouth. There's a little bit of detail. There's nothing fantastic, but there's a little bit of detail. And that works as well. There are other things you can print, like the Christmas tree that I have here. Now the Christmas tree, it gives you a little bit more of a vertical test. At the very top of the Christmas tree, you have a very tiny point. So tiny points are hard with plastic because it doesn't cool fast enough. Well, it's going to be similar with chocolate, but you can tell that the Christmas tree did a fantastic job as well. You're going to have a couple gaps here and there where the chocolate didn't extrude perfectly evenly, but nonetheless did a pretty good job with the geometry there, even though it was fairly basic. Now, you're going to be getting into some more complicated things like this vase. Now, this vase is the very first thing that I pulled off of Thingiverse. The other 3 models I did not. I pulled those directly from LuckyBot's website. Those are tried and true. Those are tested by LuckyBot. That's probably why they're on the website. Now, I did want to print things that were not on the website, and so that's why I tried this vase. Now, you can tell this vase is solid in that there's infill, but it's essentially solid chocolate, right? This did a very good job up until the point when I ran out of chocolate. When I ran out of chocolate, I tried to install a new tube of chocolate, and I tried to go from there, but I had some really bad luck with that. That was the very first model I printed that was not from LuckyBot's website, and that was also my very first attempt at swapping the tube of chocolate to add a new tube in mid-print. So what I did was I clicked the pause button, and I took that tube out, stuck a new tube in, I waited 45 minutes, I waited until the next tube was ready, and when I went to print, it wasn't ready. What I did was basically I got the Z offset wrong because the LuckyBot had then made 1 or 2 passes on the Z axis, and by the time the chocolate was ready, it just wasn't going to lay flat. So that is user error. This is something I do believe is possible. I do believe swapping the tube of chocolate mid-print is doable. I think that's going to take some time, and I think it's going to take a couple tries in order to get it right. But otherwise, this print came out really good, and you can tell that there is a lot of detail in this, in that the design has this diamond crosshatch pattern. Other than that, this print came out very, very good. Now the white spot, again, that's going to be my own fault. So I'm not a chocolatier. Basically, what I've learned is that if you heat chocolate to a certain temperature and you cool it too rapidly, this is plastic's version of warping. So if you do that, you're going to have a warped color, and apparently that's no bueno. Chocolate is still edible, but it just looks a little bit not so pretty. That's my fault. I must have had the nozzle too high or too hot, and I had a cool breeze blowing in that one spot, and that's what caused that. So the next thing that I wanted to print is going to be this fat sitting cat. Now, I have a fantastic Instagram reel. Guys, go check out my Instagram. This blew up. This got tagged by an account with 154,000 followers. They shared it. It was great. So first, with this cat, I did not realize it needed support. So the first time I tried to print it, this is what I printed. Now, it needed support, and so it drooped, and it failed miserably. One thing with this printer, if you want to print supports, good luck. Yeah, you ain't gonna print without supports if you need supports. It only needed 2 layers of supports, maybe 3 in one case, right below the tail. It needed 2 or 3 layers of support, and I didn't have that, and it just did a really bad job. So, guys, here's the thing. If you need supports on a print, you either must put the supports there, and we're gonna see in just a minute how hard it is to actually remove those supports. But you either must put those supports there, or you must get a model that does not require supports. Because the first one, it just didn't work. As the chocolate was extruded, it fell like 2 or 3 layers, and then from there, nothing was lining up. Now, this other model that I added supports to, I have been very, very curious how the supports pull off of this, and I'm about to do that right now. And I am very, very surprised. Of course, I have to eat this chocolate, right? I'm very surprised that the supports pull off, or they crush off, if you will. They crush off very well, actually. So I've been dying to do this and test this support thing for 2 days, because I printed this 2 days ago, and I am very, very surprised. I'm very pleased with how the supports pulled off. And there's definitely some support material underneath. It's not perfectly pretty, it's not amazing, but that came off very, very well. So the answer is, if you want to print something with supports, go ahead and do it, but make sure you put the supports in, and just know that it's going to take a lot of material away from you. Alright guys, so as Joel from 3D Printing Nerd would say, it is not all unicorn farts and rainbows. Now that doesn't mean that it's all LuckyBot's fault. I just want to give you guys some considerations that I have. And the first one is LuckyBot has this machine operating on Cura 15.04. I don't even know what Cura 15.04 is. I have not been in the 3D printing community long enough to know what kind of a spin-off that is. Guys, all I know is Cura 15.04 doesn't have very many options. That being said, it should be very, very easy to get this machine and this extruder functioning in a standard version of Cura. I haven't done it. I don't have the time to do it right now. Guys, check the description. There might be a Cura configuration file for this that I have made in the future. And if I do make it, I will post it below. But guys, I don't know how to use Cura 15.04. All I did for some of these was I threw the models in, clicked the slice button and saved it to the SD card, and then threw it to the machine and it worked. So that being said, guys, it works. There's really no difficulty with it. I just don't know how to do anything complex or complicated with it. That is one thing to consider. The other thing to consider is you cannot use cheap chocolate. Guys, it just doesn't work. I'm not a chocolatier, I believe I've already mentioned, but guys, this stuff, it has too many emulsifiers in it, just not good stuff. The ingredients that create this chocolate does not work. So this bag of Calibo, 1 kilogram bag of Calibo cost me $40. That, I did the math, that is about 4 to 5 times more expensive than Hershey's. So yeah, guys, something to consider there. The other thing to consider is, guys, BL Touch doesn't work. This machine is gigantic. There's nowhere to mount a BL Touch or a CR Touch or whatever. It just can't be done. I mean, not easily at least. If you want to do it, there might be some ways for you to manage a very, very, very long and just gigantic BL Touch mount. So the thing is, if you want to use a BL Touch, you're gonna have to go with some kind of a very custom mount. And if you don't want to use a BL Touch and you're installing this on a machine that already has a BL Touch, that means you have to flash the firmware. Now, for me, that wasn't very annoying because I can just reflash the firmware right back. I have a separate SD card that I'm going to use with the LuckyBot. I have a separate SD card that I'm going to use for plastic. All of it works just the same. Another thing to consider with the LuckyBot is if you want to actually consume the parts that you print, you must have a clean printer. There is no reason to eat chocolate off of a printer that has dust and chemicals and hairspray and then glue stick. Guys, if you even want to consider printing on the actual print bed, probably your best bet is to buy a brand new bed that is not used for plastic ever. You probably never want to print plastic on something that you're then going to print chocolate on and consume. I would not recommend it. So that being said, it is recommended that you lay a sheet of parchment paper down. And you can't just get the roll of parchment paper from the grocery store. It's not going to work because the parchment paper rolls are curled whenever you get them out of the box. So there are pieces of parchment paper that you can buy on Amazon, and there might even be some at the grocery stores. I'll link some in below, but they're designed for air fryers, and all it is just a flat sheet of parchment paper. It comes flat, it comes in a flat pack, and you just pull a sheet out, you put it on the printer, and then it's perfectly flat. The reason why it must be flat and never rolled is because when you go to lay your first layer down before you have any chocolate on the printer, guys, the parchment paper is rolled, and as your nozzle is running along the parchment paper, the part that is rolled is a higher surface than the part that's flat. So that's why you use a BL Touch. It's because part of your print bed is warped and is taller or higher or lower in elevation relative to the tip of the nozzle. So whenever you have rolled parchment paper, the same thing applies. You have pieces of your print surface, which is the parchment paper, that's higher in elevation or lower in elevation compared to the nozzle. So it just doesn't work. So you're gonna have to use flat parchment paper. Guys, I don't think any of these are really anything, too drastic, and I don't think any of these are something you should, count against the LuckyBot. I honestly don't, and I wouldn't personally. But those are a few things that I do think are very important to consider if you want the LuckyBot. Okay, so this is the point of the video that I dread to make because I have to talk about the bad things about the LuckyBot. The first one is that the LuckyBot was not designed to be cleaned. So the LuckyBot has one door that opens and closes, and anything else on the LuckyBot is not intended to be opened. So you might be able to find a way to pry the case open if you need to, but it's not intended. So cleaning the LuckyBot is not an easy task. If you just simply get chocolate or potatoes or jelly or whatever it is on the sidewall of the LuckyBot, it's as simple as getting a dry paper towel, rubbing it, maybe getting a damp paper towel and rubbing it with a damp paper towel. But overall, not that difficult. If you need to clean the nozzle area, overall, not that difficult. That being said, the whole nozzle assembly cannot be removed. You can remove the nozzle, but you cannot remove the nozzle assembly. So if you need to remove the nozzle assembly, can't do it. So if there's a big mess down there, you're just gonna have to rely on a damp paper towel and hoping that that solves your issue. Now the bigger problem for me is that if the plunger is fully extended and you get any dirt or grime on the plunger or on the lead screw that operates the plunger, and then you send the plunger back up, now you've just introduced a bunch of dirt inside the brains of the LuckyBot, the top half of the LuckyBot, that we cannot access. We cannot clean it, we don't know what's up there, we don't know what damage we're doing. And so the solution to that, unfortunately, the solution is just be careful and don't let that happen, because if it does, you're on your own. I don't know how to clean that, and I really don't want you to break your LuckyBot. The other issue is with the tubes. Now these tubes, when you extend the plunger all the way to the bottom, your silicone lid also goes all the way to the bottom. When that happens, you can tell that the silicone lid is much larger than my finger, much larger than likely your finger as well, and getting the silicone lid out is incredibly difficult. I've had the silicone lid in here for 2 days, and I think I came up with an idea and a way to get it out. I'm gonna have to make a 3D print, a custom one, in order to remove that silicone lid. Guys, look in the comments below, you might find a link to that. Otherwise, if that didn't exist, if I couldn't make a custom ability to pull this out, this tube is as good as trash because there's no way to get it out. The answer to that is print only about half your tube or 3/4 of your tube. This way you can reach your finger in there, or you can put a tool in there like an Allen key or whatever it is, in order to just hook that and then pull it out. So the solution is unfortunately, don't print your whole tube, or print a tool that's going to help you remove this from the LuckyBot. Now, so unfortunately, those things do exist with this device. The silicone lid thing, I don't believe it's make it or break it, but it is a problem. It's a design flaw in my opinion, and I think it needs to be fixed. I think a tool needs to exist in order to remove the lid. You can definitely get around it. The issue with cleaning the LuckyBot, I do believe that this is a food extruder, and that you know, if you're extruding any kind of paste that is an organic material, it's going to have to be cleaned, and I don't think that was thought of thoroughly enough, because the LuckyBot definitely needs to have an easier way to be cleaned. But overall, guys, the LuckyBot has so many pros. It can do so many things that you cannot do otherwise, and that you cannot do easily. The pros, far and away, in my opinion, outweigh the cons. Guys, I really do like the LuckyBot, and I don't think those two things I mentioned should be a deal breaker for you. Anyway, guys, I love the LuckyBot. I love it so much. I definitely recommend that you guys buy it. I have a link in the description for you to purchase this if you want it. Guys, I definitely recommend you purchase this if you are a creative mind and you like cooking, you like baking, if you like hosting for parties. This is a fantastic product. It is a very easy product to use. Like I said, it was turnkey. Guys, fantastic device. If you liked this video, if you liked this review, please put some comments below. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you didn't like. Tell me if you're going to buy this, guys. I want to know. I want you to like it. I want you to give me a subscription, guys. I have so much content coming. Anyway, guys, I will see you in the next one, and cheers. You know, it was like I printed this 3 days ago, and still pretty good.